evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to call this special Quorum Court meeting to order. The purpose of this meeting will be to discuss the county attorney and the grant administration personnel issues, the community sewer system ordinance, employees' health insurance, and other financial matters of Washington County. At this time, the prayer and the pledge is going to be handled by J.P. Sharon Lloyd. A.P. Lloyd.
Thank you. Will you bow your heads for the prayer? Heavenly Father, we humbly come to you this evening to give thanks for our many blessings you have bestowed upon us. We are thankful for our country, the greatest country on earth, our staff, our state, and our county. We invite you to this meeting this evening to be our guide. We need to be respectful, to listen, and to wisely make decisions that will produce results and to be beneficial for the residents of Washington County. We are only human and need divine intervention in solving the many issues that come before this Quorum Court. We pray that you will bring the good ideas to our thoughts and leave the negative thoughts out of this court. We ask and pray these things in your precious name, the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, J.P. Lloyd. Next thing, Carla, would you call the roll, please?
Daniel Balls. Harvey Bowman. Rick Cochran. Here. Robert Dennis.
Here.
Lisa Ecke.
She's still in church.
I'm still in church.
Ann Harbison.
Here.
Sharon Lloyd.
Here.
Tom Lundstrom.
Here.
Eva Madison.
Here.
Sue Madison. Joe Maxwell. Gary McHenry. Joe Patterson. Butch Pond.
Here.
Bill Ussery.
Quorum present. Next thing I have in front of you is adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I make a motion.
I have a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Appropriation ordinance coming up. Mr. Pond. It's number 5.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Steve.
An ordinance creating the position of paralegal in the county attorney budget and appropriating the amount of $18,586 from the general fund to the county attorney budget for 2016. Article 1, there is hereby created the position of paralegal, grade 14, in the county attorney budget of the general fund for 2016. Article 2, there is hereby appropriated the total amount of $18,586 from the general fund to the following line items in the county attorney budget for 2016. Full-time salaries, position 0122003, $13,834. Social Security, $1,058. Non-contributory retirement, $2,006. Health insurance, $1,644. Life insurance, $44, for a total appropriation of $18,586.
Turn your mic on, will you, Butch? Thank you.
This has all been put in the order that was requested at the last time we brought it before. It was brought before us in a joint, in a form of 2 positions. I move we pass 5.1.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Well, I thought you moved to separate it.
Yeah.
But it was separated and tabled to this meeting.
I'm sorry, Karen, tell us again.
I said at the last meeting, the motion was made to separate into 2 ordinances and that it be placed on this agenda.
It was, but I thought it was tabled to this meeting, to a time certain. Was it not?
Yes, correct.
And that's a time certain would be this meeting. That was, I thought that's what the motion was.
Yes, Judge, that was my
So I think it's in order.
Okay, thank you.
And I feel conflicted in answering that question.
Okay. Discussion.
Steve, did you have a presentation?
Well, this is I think the 3rd time I've been in this seat in the last month talking about these positions, about my position. So the position in the county attorney's office. I want to say a couple of things. One, if there has been anybody who's unhappy with me in the way I've handled this situation, I want to apologize to you. Now, nobody's brought that to me personally, but I felt like some of the comments that I've heard over the last couple of meetings indicated that there was some lack of satisfaction with the way this happened from the county attorney's office. And ultimately, I'm the department head. I'm responsible for that. While I've said all this before, I want to reiterate a couple of points that I believe are really important. Number one, I can't do this job by myself. That Laney Miller has been a godsend to me as help, that she is, and that's not to the prejudice of anybody who's ever held this job before, by the way. I'm just telling you that Laney is overqualified for this job, that she brings skill sets to this county and this county government that are unique and very valuable, that what I'm asking you for tonight is to simply not take my help away and to keep her paid at a 2-grade reduction, but at the same pay rate, which is within pay. You'd have to approve that, and to ask you very respectfully to take into consideration what the county attorney's office does for this county. Y'all see some of it, but I do an awful lot. We do an awful lot for every elected official, some more than others, and that's, again, not to the prejudice. They just need me more. And if I don't have full-time help, my office will take a serious hit in how the performance goes for the county. I did request Sheriff Helder say a word or two, and he graciously agreed to do that. And so, Judge, if nobody has questions for me at this time, I would just appreciate your consideration and respectfully ask that you support this ordinance.
I'm going to recognize Sheriff Helder now if he would like to come forward and make a comment. Sheriff?
As you know, I come to almost every meeting, and I had talked to Steve before. I said, if it's an issue of the court not understanding that he serves all elected officials rather than just the judge, I wanted to speak to that because we utilize Steve and his staff quite a bit. Probably, I mean, we're pretty self-sufficient in a lot of things that we do, but a lot of the things we do have a high level of liability, and we need somebody to run questions by probably on a weekly basis, if not more than one time a week. And when this all came up, I just wanted to not really speak to whether he needs help. That's his job. I don't know, but I'm just telling you that the position of county attorney and whoever he needs to staff it is a vital function in county government. Just this week, we had an order through our civil group that came out of Pulaski County that wanted us to lay hands on somebody, put them in jail, basically to retrieve property, and I was really uncomfortable with that, to be honest with you. It was a lawful order, but I needed to hear from Steve, are we supposed to do that, and are we legal in doing that? And he did the research and was back to us immediately. We were able to fulfill that function for a court out of county that I wasn't comfortable doing. So that's just one of many circumstances. Our FOI requests are crazy, big numbers, and oftentimes we're able to bounce critical questions off of him before we release information that could cause the county to be liable. So my whole purpose is just to make sure you understand that he serves all of us, not just one office. So It's not. I'm not here to say he needs all that help. That's his job, because he knows what his workload is. I can just tell you we're part of that workload. Okay, so that's my deal. Anybody questions?
Anyone has any questions for the sheriff? Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yes, ma'am.
J.P. Pond?
I've sat on this court maybe a year longer than the next longest person on the court, and I got to tell you, it comes out in the sheriff's testimony and different ones. You know, we have lawsuits. It's a given. We read about it in the paper. The sheriff has lawsuits. The county has lawsuits, and you have to have attorneys on staff to manage those issues. But it's not just those lawsuits that I look at. It's the amount of advice that we're able to receive. And I've called Steve several times, like I did George. It's the number of lawsuits that we have avoided by making sure we stay within the law. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Any public? Yes, public comment. We've got someone coming forward right here. Please identify yourself, sir.
Tom Bartlett. I was here last week. I don't have a problem. I just kind of want to make a comment so I can be clarified, so I can feel clarified on the issue. This week, after being here last week, we watched the June 11th Personnel Committee meeting. We watched the April 21st Quorum Court meeting, and we also rewatched the Quorum Court meeting from last Thursday that we were involved in. In watching the Personnel Committee meeting for an hour and 8 minutes, it seemed very clear to us that there was such confusion as to where the $2 that is being collected on this
I think we're out of order right now.
I was going to ask you a question to make sure where this went.
Well, okay, but where this is right now, we're talking about this particular ordinance.
Right.
We will recognize the people after public comment afterwards, and you will certainly be recognized, Tom. So I'm going to ask you, unless you are speaking on this particular ordinance, then we'll have to ask you to wait until we recognize the public.
I was trying to speak directly on it. I was just giving a little bit of an overview, so excuse me if
We'll call
approached
you
it the
back
wrong
very
way.
much. Just stay with us.
Okay. I guess what we're trying to understand, and Steve needs what he needs, Mr. Zagan, I understand that. I'm just trying to understand in these positions what we're charging, this $2 in the sewer. We heard it over and over and over that it's going to a certain, we don't know where it's going, and if it goes to this position or the next one, are we committed on number 7 because that's been passed? That's my question.
Okay, thank you. And like I say, we will recognize you later at time. Thank you very much, sir. I'm sorry. Any other public comment? With no further comments, Carly, would you call the roll, please?
Butch Bond,
Yes.
Bill Essery,
Yes.
Daniel Balls,
Yes.
Harvey Bowman,
Yes.
Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
Ann Harbison,
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd,
No.
Tom Lundstrom,
Yes.
Eva Madison,
Abstain.
Sue Madison,
No.
Joe Maxwell,
Yes.
Gary McHenry,
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
Yes.
This ordinance has passed. The next thing we go to, number 6, is the appropriation ordinance, and this is also Mr. Pond.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Steve, would you read 6.1?
An ordinance changing the title of Assistant Grant Administrator, Legal Assistant position in the Grants Administrator budget for 2016, Article 1. The title of personnel position of the personnel position of Assistant Grants Administrator, Legal Assistant, Grade 16, in the Grants Administrator budget of the General Fund is hereby changed to Public Utility and Assistant Grants Administrator, Grade 16 for 2016.
Move to pass 6.1.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comment?
Judge, I'd planned.
Yes, you're recognized, Renee.
I'd planned on doing a PowerPoint to show what my office does, if that's okay. But I think that because it's such a long agenda, I'm going to forego that. However, I have asked a couple of people to come talk about what I do as far as grants go. And first, I want to have Steve Crawford come and tell you what I did at Ray's Mill and how that all worked out.
We're going to recognize one and so they can kind of see what's going on. So who is it, Renee?
Well, I have two. I have Judge Beaumont and Steve Crawford.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Come forward, sir. Please identify yourself for us and speak into the mic.
My name is Steve Crawford. I'm out there in the Rays Mill community, and I haven't been practiced in coming to these meetings. I need to change that practice, know what's going on in this county. But I know that when we were trying to fix our community building out there at Rays Mill, I had no idea how to go about raising funds other than hold a community meeting to try to get some input, which I think is the right way to do it. And we got some funds. Then I learned that I could come into the county and get some matching funds, and we did that. Renee did a wonderful job getting those funds for us. She, every time we had a question, she knew how to fill out the paperwork and do it in the proper order, do it the way it needed to be done. We learned that if the stuff isn't filled out right, you probably won't get no funds. We never had anything to fail while she was doing it. I don't know what all I'm supposed to say here, except that she has been very beneficial in helping us in our community.
We appreciate you. So we appreciate the input. So thank you very much. Judge Beaumont. Please identify yourself. I think everyone knows, but.
Hi, I'm Christy Beaumont. I'm going to just keep it real short, but Renee had contacted me and asked to speak on her behalf. Renee has been an essential part. I think all of y'all are aware that we've gotten over $1 million in grant funds for our drug court and veterans treatment court. And I have to be honest, she drives me a little crazy sometimes because she is so meticulous and she is so on top of every single requirement. And as someone who is not used to dealing with figures and everything every day, it might be a little annoying to me. But as for someone who is in a grants administration position, it's essential. And I can tell you that I have absolutely no doubt that she is taking care of the money that we have gotten for grants, and that without her, we probably would not have gotten the large amount of grants that we have gotten in this county. So,
thank you, Judge. Appreciate you very much.
There's a question.
J.P. Bowman?
This is why I don't come.
Well, thank you, Judge. My question wasn't for Christy, but I learned from our predecessor in this position that he did a whole lot of travel for all kinds of issues. And I've heard a number of comments from the courthouse here that Renee's not in the office from 8 till 5. And I'd like for Renee to express to us what her activities involve that take her away from the courthouse and about issues there that would keep her from being in the office from 8 to 5. I think everybody knows that it doesn't make any difference if you're a mayor or a judge or anything of the kind. Sitting in the office 8 to 5 is not always the way the job gets done. So I'd appreciate if she'd come forward and tell us a little bit about off hours or other things she has to do to take care of her requirements.
Can I answer one little part of that first?
Well, please do.
I can tell you that I've required her to be at our office a number of times for grant meetings, and that in addition to that, I've called her after hours a number of times to make sure that everything was exactly how it should be for our grant. So I do make her work after hours. I apologize.
Put
Thank
it
you,
on her.
Judge.
Put it on her. Make her earn pay.
Hang on just a minute, Judge. Butch, did you have a question?
Oh, I just wanted to add a little bit to the issue Harvey brought up. We still have some pockets in the county, some areas scattered around where there's no potable drinking water. And I know Renee has brought it forward that there is some grant money available for that. And I'm pretty much I'm counting on Renee to do whatever she can with if the people that don't have the water will help her to get some of those water lines complete. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Pond. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Okay. Sure. Renee, go ahead and try to, let's keep it as brief as we can, but go ahead and answer J.P. Bowman's question.
I think what J.P. Bowman is asking about is I make numerous trips to Harrison, to Little Rock, to Biloxi, to New Orleans, to Winslow, to Evansville, wherever the money needs to be or wherever it can be found is where I can be found on a daily basis from 8 to 5. I work a lot of after hours. I've been at POA meetings, POA barbecues in the afternoon on Saturdays. I've gone out and looked at a well that was beginning to be drilled on a Saturday morning. So if you want to know where I'm at, I'm available on my phone. Call me, message me, text me, email me. My door's open. I want everybody to know that I'm accessible, approachable. Please come see me.
Thank you, Renee. Appreciate it. Yes, J.P. Cochran.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Spivey, the amount of grants that we received for last calendar year was a total of what? Do you know offhand?
The amount of federal dollars that we received for last calendar year was $1.1 million.
And we had,
those are federal dollars.
And we have some state grants as well?
Yes.
Okay.
In total, it was approximately 1.6.
Okay. So similar case can be made for your department just as our legal staff needs help. You need help.
I do need help.
If we continue on the course of monitoring the septic systems that are outside of the county, inside the city, that adds to your burden of what you already have. Your department is very beneficial to our county in that many grant funds of all natures, whether it's the drug court, for the police department, the sheriff's department, in any way, is very important to me and to our county. And I do support this ordinance to keep your full-time person in here to help you. I know there's been some talk of a part-time person or position, but given the level of expertise and credentials that the individual should have, it doesn't lend itself to finding a part-time person, I don't believe. So I will support you in 6.1. Thank you, Judge.
J.P. Lundstrom.
I have been very happy with Renee's work on grants. My problem with 6.1 is not grants or how much time she spends in her office, because we have the same thing. Mr. Zaga was talking about applied to us from time to time. He does a lot of work we don't see him do. We do a lot of work people don't see us do. You know, we get accused of being overpaid for just sitting here an hour, but they don't know about the weddings and going out to look at roads and answering questions, et cetera, et cetera. So don't worry about that part. My problem is these sewers. I have come to a position where I am just absolutely and totally opposed to us fooling with these city sewers. If they're in a city, I'm in favor of letting the city take care of it. It's their responsibility, it's their liability. I don't know why we want that on ourselves. I don't think that's our job. I don't think it's our position. If we have some sewers that are in the county, that may be a different situation, but it would not be near as many as are in the cities right now, if I understand it. When I voted on the previous ordinances about the $2 and so forth, I did that basically out of a large degree of ignorance because I don't think I was told enough information. I know there's a gentleman here tonight that's going to argue that the people that are using these sewers don't want to pay $2 because they're already being inspected and taken care of by authorities that are already responsible for doing that. So at least that's my understanding. So right now, with the sewer aspect of this, I cannot support a grade 16 employee, and that's the reason I understand it's a grade 16, because they have to have a lot of information about water quality and so forth. Am I right on that?
That's partially correct. It's also, I'm not, Blair and JSAP graded the position. There's also lots of funds and fiduciary responsibilities that are held by the position.
But I think they did that mainly based on the fact that the person had to be trained in that kind of chemistry and so forth. But anyway, right now, without further information, I probably will oppose this, Renee. I think you do a wonderful job. You probably need at least some part-time help. But I think this is like $40-some thousand a year. And I don't like growing government, so especially when it doesn't need to be grown. And I'd like more information. I'm anxious to hear the gentleman that's here tonight get his point of view on what these sewers are and what our responsibility in his point of view should be. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Judge, can I ask Attorney Zaga one question?
Sure, go right ahead.
Mr. Zaga, would it be out of order to table this until after the sewer ordinance, to ask that it be tabled until after the sewer ordinance tonight?
You can, one of the justices could just move to suspend the rules. Actually, they could move to table it. It's already been moved and seconded, has it not?
I'm the sponsor. If that's going to be a cooperative motion with Renee, I'd be glad to move to postpone this until...
To change the agenda now, especially after it's been moved and seconded, take a 2/3 vote. That's
okay.
But you can make that motion.
Move to change the agenda until we get the other thing out of the way.
Do me a favor. Get closer to your mic and say it again for me.
Move to change the agenda where we can deal with the other issue first.
Second. Okay, I have a motion and a second. So, J.P. Harbison?
No discussion on
no discussion on that. I'm sorry. Okay, let's do roll call on this, Carly.
Butch Pond?
Yes.
Bill Ussery?
Yes.
Daniel Balls?
Yes.
Harvey Bowman?
Yes.
Rick Cochran?
Yes.
Robert Dennis?
Yes.
Lisa Ecke?
Yes.
Ann Harbison?
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd?
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom?
Abstain.
Eva Madison?
No.
Sue Madison?
Yes.
Joel Maxwell?
Yes.
Gary McHenry?
Yes.
Joe Patterson?
Yes.
Motion carried, Judge.
Okay, so we will set this aside. Renee, I guess.
Staying here.
Okay, now, we're going to bring this back, and then we'll have public comments then. Do we need to go ahead and have public comments now? Okay, we'll have public comments after. So the next thing we have on that, this one's set aside until a later time in the evening. And we're ready to go into number 7. And this would be to discuss the concerning community sewer systems. Okay.
Judge, I understand that I'm on the agenda to talk about this, and I think that Renee needs to talk about it too. I think I'm here kind of in two capacities. One's the legal and one's the history. I'll talk about the history a little bit. I think as we discussed in J.P. Eva Madison's committee in County Services, the rationale for passing this ordinance in the first place was that we had something very similar to this that we passed early after the sort of dawn of community-based sewer systems. I called them decentralized when I was on this court. And we passed this ordinance similar to this primarily for two reasons. One was to get financial oversight because the systems were not the systems were owned by various kinds of people, run by various kinds of entities, and frankly, and I'm now talking as a historian, not a lawyer. The worry was then that when these systems malfunctioned or failed, that the call wasn't going to go to a state rep or somebody else. It was going to go to a JP. If you have one of these in your district, that was the thought process. And so if it was in the county and a JP, you wanted something out there, we wanted something out there all those years ago as a mechanism to deal with these systems and the financial side. And the second was to put some money aside for those kinds of failures in the event that somebody who had been operating the systems just stopped. Those were kind of the rationales in the way back. Fast forward, in 2014, I believe, I wasn't here, y'all repealed this ordinance or this predecessor in its entirety, partially because the state had a very similar set of statutes, requirements, regulatory requirements, and you didn't feel like it was a good idea to double regulate. Well, about 2 or 3 months after y'all took it away, the state took theirs away as well. What's left with the state, there are regulations from ADEQ and the Department of Health about construction. There are regulations from ADEQ about, and now I am going back into my lawyer mode, there are regulations from ADEQ about things such as nutrient loads and effluent storage and land application and discharge and non-discharge and all the things that go to whether they can be legally operated or not. The thing that's left on the financial side from the state is a trust fund, and the trust fund is supposed to pay for failures if they happen in the event that there is no responsible party. The trust fund is capped at $2.1 million statewide. My understanding is that as we sit here tonight and discuss this ordinance, it's got $36,000 in it. And I can tell you that $36,000 won't fix one of these. Now, if there is a problem, any kind of major problem in one of these systems, $36,000 won't fix one. Y'all have options, and I'm happy to discuss that with y'all. You can go back. This ordinance, though, was passed as an emergency in April. Its effect is ongoing right now. You amended it in June at Ms. Bybee and my request because we caught something that should have been fixed with respect to public entities. You have a lot of things you can do with it. The regulations that are called for in the system, I've been working on with Renee back and forth and George, drafting for about a month and a half. They're not done yet. We haven't had the public hearing that's required on them, so the regulatory piece of this is not done. It's not finished. But you as a quorum court have a lot of things you can do with this ordinance just like you do with any ordinance. You can amend it. You can, frankly, take an arc gum eraser to it if that's what you choose to do. And that being said, I'm happy to field questions either in the attorney capacity or the historian capacity. There are a couple of you who were on the court when we passed various versions of this and kind of remember why it happened and how it evolved.
I'm going to ask one question here. The money that's set aside at state level, is that for the entire state of Arkansas?
Yes, ma'am.
So-
$2.1 million cap.
It's for every county, all 75.
Yes, ma'am.
And right now you say there's less than $40,000 in the full
I
account.
understand that it's about $36,000 as we speak now.
Okay, scary.
Now, let me, Judge, you bring up a point.
Sure.
I want to answer that. The way that particular fund gets money is each of these systems out there in the state pay into it annually, I think, maybe monthly. But they pay into it until there's a $2.1 million fund, and then it cannot be contributed to anymore. So they shut off. The statute says they are not allowed to collect that anymore. So at $2.1 million, they're not allowed to collect until the fund goes back down below $1.5 billion, and then the state sends a bill out essentially and says, "Please send us more of this fee money."
J.P. Bowman.
Thank you, Judge. I had the opportunity today to speak to an engineer that's doing work with subdivisions on a routine basis, and I asked him about state inspections of these systems. He said, as far as he knows, there is no state inspection on a regular basis of these systems. And the mayor that was there as well said that he was not aware of any state inspections. So, you know, we could have a substantial problem out here develop for a long period of time if we don't have anybody out checking on these systems to see if they're functioning properly. So as far as I'm concerned, I think to have oversight and to have a routine inspection process is totally appropriate. We know that there's a local situation here that got completely out of hand, and I don't know if it's even still completely resolved. So as far as I'm concerned, we need some oversight here to be sure that Washington County doesn't become a real mess because of this thing, because it doesn't sound like the state is willing to fund enough money to even to begin to take care of any number of issues that might come up. Thank you, Judge.
J.P. Lloyd.
Thank you. Ms. Bybee, do we know how many systems that we currently have in the state?
Throughout the state, I do not know.
How many do we have in the county?
12.
12 in the county. And besides the one that caused all this big mess out toward West Fork and stuff, Homestead or whatever the name of it was, what was the one that...
The one that we're currently in litigation with?
Yes.
Valley View Golf. Valley View.
Valley View. Is that the only one that we've had issues with?
No, ma'am.
How many have we had issues with out of the 12?
9.
9. Okay. Okay, thank you.
J.P. Harbison.
I think we've got two issues here. One, and this is kind of a two-edged sword, do we want to take over these systems that are in these small cities, like Farmington and Prairie Grove? Do we want to be oversight? And if we're going to do the ones in the county, it really would not take that much more to help out these small cities and have the oversight of those systems. So, I think Tom Lundstrom has a point, but most of these are in the small cities of, Prairie Grove, Farmington. I'm not sure what Valley View's in, which city limits.
Both Prairie Grove and Farmington.
So, they don't really have, they need to pay us for us to take care of them, yes. But to hire a single person to do it within their city government, I think it would be wiser, since if we continue to oversight those in the county, to help out the small cities and do the oversight for them. So I think J.P. Lundstrom has a point, but I think the small cities, now doing the oversight for Fayetteville and Springdale, I think that's another issue. Thank you.
J.B. Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Judge. Ray, this is kind of a crystal ball question, but do you have an estimate on what an average issue with one of these septic systems would cost to repair? I don't know if there's an average issue out there, but...
I think the systems that are out there vary. So I don't have an average issue of what it costs to repair.
Could you quote maybe one of the more recent repairs we've had to do then?
I can tell you that one recent repair was we had to go through and replace all the risers that were on the interceptor tanks for the whole subdivision. The risers all had to be replaced, and that cost was about $20,000. For the whole subdivision, it was 50-lot subdivision. So that's just one.
Okay.
There's others.
Do you know what the cost is going to be for Valley View roughly to fix that issue?
Currently, Valley View, it's my understanding, the Improvement District has already expended approximately $100,000, and it would be approximately $350,000 to get it in good working order to be permittable.
Okay. So somewhere between $20,000 and $350,000, give or take.
The receiver for Valley View is here and would also like to speak on this issue.
Okay. And then I guess my last question is, if the county doesn't regulate these, whether they're part of the interlocal or not, if there's one of these systems and the county doesn't regulate it, what happens to the homeowners without any oversight from us?
Well, what could happen, and I see this ordinance as a consumer protection ordinance for the end user. So what could happen is the operator who has collected the $50 per month for several years has collected the $50 per month. The homeowner has paid that, and then they decide to quit. The system is not in good working order. There's multiple violations, and the homeowners, the subdivision, the POA, the owner of the system, is left holding the bag with no money because they haven't generated any revenue over the past few years, and they're left holding the bag to do these repairs with no oversight, no help. Is the scenario that could happen if there isn't some financial oversight over these entities who collect and operate and maintain these systems.
So if there was a failure that cost $100,000, we would deplete the 36 in the statewide fund, and then the homeowners or whoever would be responsible for the rest of that. And would just, even though they've paid their dues, they would still have to pay for whatever repairs or issues there are.
Yes, we have. Yes, that's existing right now.
Thank you.
J.P. Lundstrom.
Well, you may have just answered my question. I'm not sure what you talked about. It cost $11,000 to replace those risers. Who paid for those risers?
Those risers that were replaced, I was fortunate enough that I helped the subdivision to obtain some funding through FEMA to pay for those risers, and that's how we got those.
What I'm beginning to be concerned about now is us paying for some of that stuff, the county. In other words, if the $36,000 is depleted, whoever built the system is gone. You know, I can almost see us paying for some of that stuff.
I think.
But what bothers me also is, see, I live in Elm Springs, Arkansas, and we have a step system out there, which is one of these types of systems. It's citywide, but it's not adequate to handle the city. So they finally have changed their ordinances where you can now fix your septic tank and stuff. But it's basically been a failure. And Springdale now is beginning to take our gray water because we don't have the facilities to handle it. But if a small town, I mean, they don't have to accept these systems. They could deny it. Just don't allow these subdivisions to put them in. Do these cities already have a sewer system, or are they all on septic tank, or what?
The towns that we're talking about having an interlocal agreement with are not towns that are approving these new. These are existing systems that are already there that were platted, final platted in 2005, usually 2006 era. So we're not talking about new systems that the cities are putting in. But they were in the county and then annexed later. And so what I want,
they wanted them.
What I think is good for the county is to have one central person or one central office to be able to come to. If they're in an area that's served by decentralized sewer and their operator is not operating the way that they think they should, or there's a billing issue, they have somebody local to call.
Well, I still don't understand why they can't call the local city council or the local mayor for that answer, because it's inside of a, incorporated city. So, thank you very much.
I'm going to recognize our attorney. He's got a couple of answers to some of this, and then JP Usry, and then JP Lloyd. I'll get you guys next.
I wanted to address something JP Maxwell asked, and Renee gave a good answer, but there's more to it. Hopefully, one of the things you get out of this ordinance is not a situation where hopefully is where the plant or the system does not fall out of permit status. Now, I know what you'll hear, I think, and it's valid. There are responsible operators who don't let that happen. There are also irresponsible operators who have let that happen. And so what is the consequence of that for the homeowner? The consequence of it legally could be, I've never known this to happen, okay, but the statute says so. ADEQ can come in and shut the system down and join its operation. Well, what do you mean by that, Sega? I mean that it suddenly becomes illegal to flush your toilet. They have fined these systems. They have imposed civil penalties on these systems. They are busily imposing civil penalties on these systems now. So if that happens, who pays for it? Well, if there's no operator, and actually we're trying to work with ADEQ now on just one of these situations where the only people left to pay are the homeowners, right? We're trying to convince them that that's not maybe the right way to go about their goals. But it can also happen, not just that they're responsible for the payments to fix the system, they could be conceivably left finding. Now, I've never seen that happen, right? But it's legally possible because they are operating out of permit. And where does ADEQ get the money if the operator's gone for their fines and they insist on getting them? Because the only question legally in that situation is, was there a valid permit? And in one case in this county, the answer to that question is no. We've had one of these systems now operating out of permit for 6 months. Was the permit operating, and did you operate? Was there a permit, and did you operate the system anyway? That's basically it. And once the answer to those two questions is no and no, or no and yes, there was no valid permit and yes, you operated it, ADEQ by the statute can go after civil penalties.
Okay. Next, JP Usry.
If I'm understanding this correctly, that $2 a month is really cheap insurance compared to what could happen. And if we monitor it and we catch it while it's small and we make sure they stay in compliance, it seems to me like the homeowner should be protected a lot more than the consequence of not doing that. Thank you.
JP Lloyd.
Thank you, Manager. When I'm adding up these numbers here, we've got 425 county lots, but 1,091 city lots. So haven't we taken more than we should be taking in? I mean, when you look at Farmington, Prairie Grove, Fayetteville, Goshen, their lots total 1,091, and only the county lots 425. So aren't we encroaching on some cities that we shouldn't be encroaching on? I mean, it doesn't. It's 2 to 1. We're taking in so many city lots that, I mean, I feel like J.P. Lundstrom. Why aren't those cities taking care of their 1,091 lots, and us take care of our 425? I mean, that's just something that I wanted to throw out there. And then another thing is, what can we do that ADEQ doesn't do? I mean, what authorities would the Grants Administration Office or this person, what authority would they have that the ADEQ doesn't do? I mean, to me, that's a serious question, because there's already a government oversight. So what more could we do for these people?
It's financial oversight. There is no fiduciary oversight for any of the operators or the managers of these systems currently. DEQ doesn't have financial oversight. there's no entity in the state level that has oversight over these operators that collect these monthly utility fees. And where does the money go? If they just decide to up and run out, then the homeowners are left holding the bag after they've paid their monthly fees every month. They're still left owing a fortune. There's no financial oversight on the ADEQ level. Act 575 repealed the requirement that ADEQ had for catastrophic failure. They required 5 years operating expenses to be placed with the letter of credit or bond. State Representative Andy Davis, he's also a operator of new water systems. He has a couple of systems in our area that he operates. He brought forth this bill to repeal the financial requirements based on those fees being arduous. We agree to disagree that those fees are arduous, and that's why we need to be involved. Did you read the article that I sent you, or that you may have in front of you, regarding what Pulaski County is currently going through?
Yes, I did.
There's counties all over the state that are worried because they have systems like this, and in the event that there's failure, then who's going to pay? It's going to be the homeowners who have paid their monthly bills every month, thinking that everything was going along just rosy, and then to come to find out that they could be fined from ADEQ for flushing their toilet because their operator's just up and gone.
Okay, so the city wouldn't have oversight over on these 1,091 lots? They wouldn't have? I mean,
No.
Are you telling me that they would not?
Currently, they do not have. No. That's why we've proposed the interlocal agreements with the cities of Goshen and Prairie Grove, as well as Farmington. We haven't brought that one yet, but we do propose one for that, to have one central office to oversee the financial responsibilities for these sewer systems.
Thank you.
J.P. Madison.
I'm going to move to suspend the rules and open this up for public comment. And I want to do that because we're talking about something we passed already, and we have issues on the agenda tonight that a lot of people are here to discuss that are very important. And I want everybody to get their chance in, but I feel like we're talking about something that's already existing law and interlocals that we already passed. So let's let the folks that are here tonight speak. Let's hear them, and let's move on. So
I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and let the public be heard. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, we're going to start recognizing the public to speak on this. Each one of you come forward, and you'll have 3 minutes each person. So if you will please identify yourself and proceed. Thank you, sir.
My name's Kenneth Jenkins. I actually hate to speak in public, but I feel it's my responsibility, so I'm here. I'm a home builder. I've built in most of the cities in northwest Arkansas and Washington County and Benton County. I've built with step systems, these sewer systems in Bethel Heights and Lowell, and unfortunately the Homestead Estates between West Fork and Greenland. Fred Jack was a mayor and overseer of the sewer system in Bethel Heights. We never had a problem with it. When I was involved in it, I introduced Renee to him. Lowell, the worst problem we ever had was a cut PVC line where somebody dug where they shouldn't have. And that was an easy fix. And Homestead Estates has been the financial nightmare of my life, strictly because of, well, two things. Most of the builders in there filed bankruptcy when the economy crashed, except me. I built 16 homes in there. I still own 6. 1 I built for my wife and 5 that I rent. And Tom said he wanted more information to make up his mind. I've got it right here, where things at Homestead Estates were mishandled from the finances from the very beginning, to the central system not being installed as per plan, to not being kept up, to being constantly inspected and improvements not made by the ADEQ.
along with tanks not having gravel around them and causing them to collapse to some degree. Risers having to be replaced in the whole subdivision because they weren't done properly. The problem with these systems is not with the systems, it's with the operators of the systems. And Tom Bartlett put this system in Homestead Estates. And I've never been less happy dealing with an individual. I went into that situation in good faith, and I was really just disgusted with the whole situation and until I met Renee. And I must say that for someone who was just took the job, and I met her when she first took that job, I was absolutely shocked at how fast she came up to speed when I told her, you need to talk to Fred Jack. You need to talk to Mr. Neely, who's put these systems in. You need to become educated. She became educated overnight, and I guarantee you she was studying at home at night. If she says she needs $2 more a month to have help, I'm here to pay my $2 a month on my 6 homes, however long it takes. If she says she needs $5 a month, I'll pay it, because she's a person of integrity.
Okay, your time is up, but we have one of our JPs that want to ask you a question. Just keep your seat for just a moment, please.
I just wanted to comment that I used to know the Latin term for it, but we seem to always overlook here the doctrine of let the buyer beware.
Caveat emptor.
Yeah, caveat emptor. We had this system installed in Elm Springs, and it was installed very poorly. They had them put the tank in their lateral field in to start with because the city didn't have the main line run. Then made them cut off that lateral field, which cost them a couple of $1,000s, and not use it. So there's been all kinds of problems with it, but just listening to your comments, if that system is that bad when it's put in, doesn't seem to me like Renee inspecting it is going to fix it. Well, somebody's still going to have to spend the money that it takes.
But that's the point, is all of us homeowners are stuck spending the money. And we're having to fix it as quickly as we can. But without oversight, here's my take on it. When I went down there to build homes in that subdivision, Greenland issued building permits as it being in their growth area. Other builders who didn't want any oversight went to the county judge and got them dismissed. They had to return our funds, even after they'd already done inspections. Now, over a technicality in the law. But that's been standard practice if it's in your growth area to go ahead and there's nobody else at the time to do it. There was not a county process at the time. So what they wanted was to not have oversight, and as soon as they didn't have oversight, they started cutting corners. I hired a state inspector, the inspector from Greenland, and paid him to do my inspection so that I would have oversight. So if someone doesn't want oversight, then you better ask yourself why. And the thing is that the idea is we can't go back and reinstall everything in Homestead Estates, but we can stop it from happening in the future and
Thank
make
you.
people
I'm going to have to
answer.
stop you. Tom,
Yeah.
Are you finished?
Well, yeah, I'm basically through. I'm letting you go too far over your 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But most of these places are proper, these subdivisions are what they call them POAs, property owners associations. And they want builders like yourself want to build on smaller lots so you can get more houses in a subdivision rather than meet the 3/4 of an acre or whatever it is that the Washington County Health Department requires for a septic tank. Some places it may be an acre. So we try to get away from that, be able to put more lots per acre by doing these little step systems and so forth. And then we're knowingly buying into those problems because we're making more money by being able to build more homes per acre. So it's kind of a two-edged sword, seems to me. But I appreciate your comments. You did.
Well, it is. Can I leave
enlighten
this
me on
folder
some
with
stuff.
you?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You said you'd like to have some more information.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Do I have someone else that wants to make a public comment on the septic systems? Come forward, ma'am.
You go first.
If you'll give us your name, and you've got 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Dawn Whittington. I was here when you passed the ordinance to start taking over responsibility financially for these step systems that are being put in. Ours, as I told you before, has been a disaster. It continues to be a problem maker. And the reason that I believe that you need to oversee financially these operators is when Tom Bartlett, he was then at Greenfield Capital Development. I don't know what he's operating under now. I have no clue. When he decided to resign in 2011, then we were asked for the funds that he had been collecting to take care of our system and things. Our funds were commingled with other funds in a bank account, and it took a while to get those separated. That is why that I believe the county needs to be financially responsible for the oversight of these step systems. So, I mean, I expressed the same thing before, and will continue to do so. And it's going to cost us. I mean, it's just continually costing us. When the system was put in, they got a bond to buy all of the interceptor tanks for the lots in the subdivision. That was, well, when I came there and knew anything even about the step systems, we were at $380,000 in debt. Out of the tanks, the interceptor tanks that were brought to the property, 29 of them have disappeared, and nobody ever knows what happens to them. Okay, we're still paying $373.21 per year per household to pay off the bond that had to do with this step system. So I believe that, yes, the county needs to have financial responsibility and have rules and regulations and guidelines for the operators.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? William?
Hello, I'm William Stevenson, and I am currently the POA president for Valley View. And so you can imagine how miserable my life is right now. The community septic system that was installed in Valley View was installed when those subdivisions were rural. They were not annexed into a city. They were also designed to service a golf course, because that's a golf course community. We have a sewer plant, a small treatment plant, goes to a lagoon, goes through all the processes, goes to 2 holding ponds on the golf course, and that's how they irrigate. So it was meant to work in tandem with this golf course. And it's a good system if it's operated. I've lived there for 6 years. The sewer system was operated by an improvement district board, not by the city, not by the POA, but an improvement district board. We pay a sewer fee every month of $40. That's in addition to POA dues. It has nothing to do with our POA. It's a utility bill, just like our trash, our water, and everything else. It's come to light now that I know in the 6 years I've been there, the director of our improvement district board never operated the system, never turned it on. We don't know what he did with the money either. Yeah, I mean, and he was collecting somewhat over $20,000 a month, right? And of course now ADEQ inspected all of these years. He would get fined. He would say, straighten this out, straighten that out. They'd come back and test and go, well, we're within limits now. They never once asked him, are you fixing your stuff? What happens to the money? Because that's not their job. So if we don't have some sort of oversight, because, you know, there's really no legislation to give oversight to an improvement district board. They pretty much operate under the public trust. So I think it's essential that the county, it has to happen on a county level, because part of us is in Farmington, part of us is in Prairie Grove. So where do they draw that dividing line? They don't really want to mess with us too much. They have their own municipal systems. I would like for us to be on a municipal system, but in Prairie Grove might be impossible because you got to go under the Illinois River. And I doubt they'll ever let that one happen. The other nearest municipal systems in Farmington, and that's about 2 miles away from us. So we're looking at probably 10 years and several $1 million to connect to that system if we ever can, which that would be ideal. But without Renee being diligent, investigating these things and finding these things, we wouldn't be in the position we are now where we're getting our system up and operational. It took removing the director and the other board members, and we have a receiver. He's here tonight. I hope he'll have a chance to get up here and speak. You know, to straighten out the system, not just the mechanical part of it, which he's doing a really good job doing, but also the financials, so that we know we have enough money to fix it when it breaks. Because right now, if we had to cough it up, they just have to send a bill to every resident out there. Now, ADEQ called me in the beginning of this and told me that if we didn't get it fixed, that they would fine every household. And I mean, so that is not just a threat. That's a reality that can happen.
Your time's up, but we have a question.
Okay.
No, we have a question. J.P. Pond, did you?
Are you the go-to guy that the ADEQ inspector goes to or notifies?
No. The ADEQ inspector will actually go to the director of the system to talk to them. He'll also talk to like the code compliance officers from Farmington and from Prairie Grove.
So you don't have any idea how often the on-site inspection is done?
I really don't know how often, no.
The reason I ask that, I would like to see the ADEQ and the county, being Renee, grow into a working a relationship, or or they work with each other. I've heard comments, some people I think mistakenly, maybe there's been some idea that ADEQ doesn't do their inspections. I didn't hear that from you, and I appreciate that.
They inspect, they just don't track money.
They certainly do, and you won't know when they've been in there and come out unless they leave you a card, which they will leave you a card. It can be a nice note or maybe not. But we do need to develop a relationship with ADEQ as this process goes on. And they do their work, and they see to it that things are mechanically in compliance. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Pond. Thank you, William, and appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Take a seat and identify yourself, please.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Kopke. My wife and I have lived up on Round Mountain since 1987. I work for a nonprofit organization, Communities Unlimited, whose headquarters is in Fayetteville. And we work throughout the state of Arkansas, as well as 6 other states in the Mid-South, helping small towns and rural communities develop, manage, and operate water and wastewater systems. Tonight I'm here as the court-appointed receiver for the Valley View sewer system, the Property Owners Improvement District number 5. I won't repeat many of the comments that William made. It was a mess. It still in many respects is, but we are responding to the customers. We're responding to ADEQ. We're responding to the county. When the receiver took over the system, they had less than $800 in the bank and over $9,000 in past due bills. For 14 years, the sewer customers, which have been, last billing was 487 customers, have been paying $40 a month in sewer bills. And after 12 years, they had virtually no money in the bank and no reserves. ADEQ does a very good job of permitting and concerns with the public health. And we're in the middle of permitting a system that has been in operation for 14 years. because a permit was allowed to expire. It was just not renewed. And that permit requires attention to a lot of details, all of those operational in nature. ADQ is not asking for a single document as far as financial capacity or how we are going to manage the system. I would encourage any county in the state of Arkansas that has community sewer systems within that county to set up oversight like Washington County has done. You know, these folks that move into a subdivision that's served by a community sewer system, they don't have a choice as far as where their sewer service is provided. They're stuck with what they got, and they kind of count on the fact that when they buy a house, often a very good house, that water service, that sewer service is going to be adequate and operated well. Yes, Judge?
Your time is up, Jerry.
Okay.
We're only allowed 3 minutes. Do I
Sorry.
have anyone that has a question for Jerry? Thank you so much. Sorry, we could listen to you.
That's fine. I went on.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir, sir. Come forward and identify yourself.
Good evening. My name is Kyle Patillo, and I am the chairman of the board of directors of Waterford Estates, POA. Boy, I could talk for 30 minutes about everything I've got written down. I'll try to be quick. It sounds, what I hear some facts. I hear some things that I think are a lot of assumptions. I've learned more about sewer systems than I've ever wanted to over the last couple of months, but I've talked to ADEQ officials. I found out that they do a lot more than some of the things that I'm hearing tonight that we think they do. I mean, there are daily reports. There's daily, somebody is at our plant daily taking numbers that have to be reported, and it's in the permit right here. I mean, carbonaceous biochemical oxygen demand is reported once a month. Flow levels and daily maximum flow rates are reported daily. Somebody has to go there and get those numbers and report daily. So on our system, somebody is there daily. There's an ADEQ official there that lives here local. I asked that, is there somebody here local or is everybody in Little Rock? They said there's somebody here. How often do they inspect it? They just said regularly. I don't know if I don't think it's daily. I've talked to our operator. He said a few times a month, I believe, is what he said. The issue, one of the issues is it's not the $2. There's these layers of government that we're running into right now. And I bet most people aren't aware of this, but right now the city of Goshen has an ordinance that we have to follow. Under that ordinance, there's a requirement for an assurance bond that has to be in favor of the city of Goshen. That we're new. We actually just found out about that. That's going to cost us money to go get. If this gets passed with the city, with the county for us, then it's 5 years. It's 5 times the amount that the city of Goshen requires that'll have to be in favor of the county. On top of that, we're already paying into the fund for the state. So we'll have the state level, the city level, and the county level that we're paying not just $2 for, but we're paying for a bond for Goshen, we're paying for a bond for Washington County, and we're paying into the trust fund for the state. Another question I asked the ADEQ was about that balance, and he's exactly right, $36,000 balance. I said, does that mean that that's it? That's all there is in case of something breaks or a disaster? He said, no, the state, and he told me this is an attorney for the ADEQ, said that the state has appropriated $2.1 million for it regardless of the balance. So if it's needed, it's there. Yes, right now there's $36,000 in it, but the state has appropriated the $2.1 million if it's needed. Our average bills, I mean, when we have a repair, are $400, $500, $600. A blower goes out, a breaker goes out, something like that. We've had a tractor run through our drip field and crush some lines. That costs like $1,200. So I just want to know, what extra oversight are we getting? This $2 doesn't go into a savings fund. We would still be paying it.
Your 3 minutes is up. Thank you, sir. I do appreciate. Any questions Okay, J.P. Cochran, have a seat.
Thank you, Judge. Is your community system inside the city limits?
It's inside the city limits of
Okay,
Goshen.
then this ordinance does not apply to you.
No, but the interlocal agreement that's proposed would.
This is true. That's true for the $2.
Right.
One of the things that hasn't been brought up, I'm speaking to everybody who's commented, Article 6 in this ordinance covers the construction aspect, which is, I think, probably the strongest feature of this is that it gets built right and under good inspection to where we don't have these problems long-term down the road. I think that's, probably the best part of our ordinance here, and I'm happy
Does the
to
county know, do we really know the ADEQ's requirements? How often do they inspect it? What guidelines do they have? I've looked through and I've seen them, and they're pretty specific and stringent.
They are, and Ms. Renee Bybee is all over it. I'll promise you that.
Right.
Thank you, Judge.
J.P. Harbison.
I don't think we're questioning ADEQ's responsibility that they're inspecting these systems. What we're questioning is the financial oversight, how the money is handled, and these, and I'm not, whoever's, this thing at Valley View, they were taking in $18,000 a month. And there was no money there when the system needed to be fixed. The operator just took off. This is what we're questioning. We're not questioning ADEQ's ability to make sure that these systems are working correctly. We just want some financial oversight to make sure that there's money there to fix these systems. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask
Yeah,
a
go ahead and
question?
answer the question, sir.
It's my understanding that, and I don't know a lot about that system, but it went into bankruptcy, right? I believe it. Is that right?
Just took off.
It's in receivership.
It's in receivership. So, did it not go into receivership prior to the state making this change? I think part of the problem there was this bond that the state required that so many people couldn't get it or didn't get it. So they took that responsibility away from the POAs, from the subdivisions. Some of them couldn't afford it anyway. Can Homestead, can they afford right now to go to whoever, Cruising Associates or whatever, and purchase a bond? Do they have the money to do that? Or should we take that responsibility away from the POA? They may not can afford it. So take it away from the POA, create the state trust fund, and let the state handle it. And that's what's there. That's what they did. They're not relying on the POA to have to fund this bond. They created a trust fund that everybody pays into that's there automatically, regardless of them being able to afford it. The state's got it.
Thank you for your time, sir. I appreciate it. I'm going to take one more public comment, and then we're going to have to move on. We've got a very lengthy agenda. You've already spoke, ma'am. We need to take someone else. Thank you. Pardon?
Yes, she had.
Yeah, she spoke.
There was somebody else their hand up.
Not her. They're not talking about her.
No, not this lady.
Somebody else today.
Please identify yourself. I
Hi.
appreciate it.
Kathy Bartlett. I was here last week, but I'm new today. Sitting and listening to the discussions that are going on right now with the Quorum Court and the comments that are being made by the people at Homestead and the people at Valley View and the people at Waterford, it should be quite clear that there are a lot of matters here that need to be addressed. A lot of issues, a lot of history, problems, oversight, management, construction, who's doing what, who's responsible for what. And what concerns me as a company that has been in this industry through this whole process is that the ordinance was passed in an emergency status, and I'm really trying to get my arms around what the emergency was, because from what was stated, it was done because the state pulled back. They're not doing what they're supposed to do anymore, guys, so we better step in and we better put on, the community sewer system department's role and get them active and get them overseeing these systems. And I think that's been a real problem here. So I know I can't address the Jenkins, and I know I can't address Don Whittington. I'd love to, because there were some things said about our company personally that are wrong, but I'm not going to go there because I can't. Hopefully we can address that in another way. But my request is that the Quorum Court repeals the ordinance. They look at it a lot closer, and they implement the things into it that need to be done. Maybe you do need oversight at construction, but maybe you don't need management of operators, or maybe you need to do some other measures to really make sure that what you're doing is done correctly. We'd love to counsel with you. We've been down this road. We've worked with the county in the past. We worked with the county in 2004, 2005, 2006. All the way through until you pulled back in 2014. Now we're here again. We'd love to work with you. It's really important it's done the right way, and I just don't think it was done the right way.
Can I ask you a question? How many
Absolutely.
systems do you operate?
In Washington County?
Yes, ma'am.
We operate 3.
Do you have any problems with any of the 3 you're operating?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much, ma'am. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Okay. Like I said, this was our last one. We're going to move forward. And
Can I ask a question, Mr. Zaga?
yes, you can. Go right ahead, J.P. Lunsford.
Mr. Zaga, I'm curious if we do these interlocal agreements, we charge a fee to offer a service. Is there zero liability on us if our service is not adequate, and if problems arise with these things because we don't do adequate service? I just wonder if we have liability possibility.
I don't know that you'll get many lawyers to ever say there's no chance of liability. That risk is marginal to low, J.P. Lundstrom, in my opinion. And the reason for that is when you exercise government function, a legislative function, you have immunity. The immunity gets breached or set aside if you act in conscious disregard of state statute. It's a civil rights case, essentially. And it's in a case like this, it would be awfully tough, in my opinion, to make a case. But I'm not going to say never.
Well, I realize, that tort immunity is available and so forth. But where we're charging a fee for a service and we hire a person who we don't know yet, we don't know how adequate they're going to be. If they're derelict in their duty, that
they would still be
the tort, doesn't it? If there's complete dereliction on the part of the county official.
If it came to the point where there was the legal phrase is conscious and deliberate indifference. If it came to that point, yes, we could be held liable. But that is an awfully tall legal hill to climb.
Okay, thank you for speaking to it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. We have discussed this ordinance, and then we were Renee had asked that we do this before we go back to the number 6 for the change of the title. Do we need to make a motion, anything to that effect, or can we just...
It's already been moved and seconded, has it not?
Okay. So there we're going back to the appropriation ordinance number 6. J.P. Pond, let's go ahead and start this discussion again.
Yes, ma'am. We don't need to read it.
No, sir. I think where you were procedurally is you were in quorum court discussion when you took it away. I don't know that you closed discussion, Judge, and you've yet to have public comment. Is that right, Karen?
We don't need to move to pass it again or anything like that.
Okay, do we have any other further comment from the JP from our panel here? Do I have any public comment on this particular position? Okay, Carly, let's call the roll. Oh, I'm sorry, JP Bowman.
No problem. Could we get a specific of exactly what we're voting on?
Ordinance 6.1.
Okay. So we're not talking about tabling it or whatever. We're going to talk about passing this ordinance. Okay, good deal. Thank you.
Okay. Carly?
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Bill Essery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd.
No.
Tom Lundstrom.
No.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joe Maxwell.
Yes.
Gary McHenry.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
No.
Okay. JP, and the number 6 or appropriation ordinance has been passed. So now we're going to move on to number 8, consideration of employees' health insurance. Mr. Driver. Yes, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Sorry about that. I think that's a good idea. Okay, guys, let's get started. Number 8, consideration of the employees' health insurance. Mr. Driver, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. But in your package, you've got a new spreadsheet and a new cover letter, 8.1 revised. I would refer you to that point. Had some number errors when I merged my spreadsheets, and so that's the reason for the correction. I'm about cross-eyed from looking at numbers. One of the things that we're here for tonight is a continuation of the meeting from 2 weeks ago. Is to ask you your consideration in making the adjustments and changes to the Employee Health Fund and the Employee Health Program in order to give HR enough opportunity and time. I believe Lindsay's deadline is September 1 to be able to have adequate time to get information out to the Washington County employees for their decision-making processes prior to open enrollment for 2017, which occurs during the month of November. The letter that you've got in front of you was the proposal that I gave you a couple of weeks ago, and it shows the different options A, B, and C in item number 1. The present calendar year deductible for health care with Washington County is $345 and has been at that point for quite some time. Option A would be to increase that deductible to $1,000 per year, per calendar year, which would result in a savings of approximately $348,000 to the health fund. Option B, which is stepping it to $750, would be an approximate savings of $244,000, and then to $500 would be an approximate savings of $180,000. Also, the changes to the plan in order to stop the outflow, the excessive outflow of money to the tune of about $820,000 a year, would be changing the copays on prescription drug coverages from 10, 30, 55 to 15, 35, and 60, and that is generic, preferred, and non-preferred, which would approximately give the county a savings of about $100,000 a year in prescription drug cost. Year in and year out for the last 5 or 6 years, we have paid out in excess of $800,000 in prescription drug cost out of the Washington County Health Plan, just to give you a reference point for that. Raising the in-network annual out-of-pocket expense from $1,000 to $6,000 would be a savings of approximately $180,000 per year to the plan. And removing the end-of-the-year 3-month carryover provision, and that carryover provision, again, is if you have not reached your deductible prior to October, costs that go towards your deductible that are registered during the months of October, November, and December, carry over to the next plan year. So that would reduce your deductible liability for the next plan year. That would reduce or give a savings to the plan of approximately $20,000. Raising the primary care physician copay from the current level of $25 to $30 would give the plan savings of about $32,000. So you can look at your total estimated savings if you go with your 3 different deductible options, anywhere from $680,000 down to $512,000. Now that $512,000 is going to be a change from what you saw on this letter 2 weeks ago. That was a miscalculation on my part. If you will, before we move on to the spreadsheet, do y'all have any questions about that? Anything so far?
J.P. Cochran.
They will still have access to the I Am Well program where they have no copay to go see
Yes,
a doctor on demand.
that is an option to not only the employee but the employee's family if they are covered under Washington County's health plan. We have two providers. We have a contractual agreement with I Am Well, which is a freestanding express care clinic, and also a contract with UAMS, which has also an express care portion of their facility on North College and North Street. Any employee dependent that is covered under the plan can go see a primary care team there with no copay, no out-of-pocket cost on that visit. And they strive to do same day or at the very least next day service to get somebody in and get them taken care of. And that's one of those areas of utilization. And the reasoning that we referred to a little bit 2 weeks ago, the reason we offered this is to get somebody that is having to make that decision maybe between whether I buy a loaf of bread or whether I go to the doctor, to be able to go see a doctor, get treatment if they've got the sniffles before it turns into a full-blown case of the flu or something that's going to put them in the hospital. And those two services are still available, and we strongly encourage the employees and dependents to use this service. Just need to remind them to make sure that they identify themselves as a Washington County employee or dependent when they go. If that answers your questions.
Proceed.
Okay. If you will move to the spreadsheet, on the first page of the spreadsheet, the different categories that we have presently with our health plan, and Washington County is a self-funded health plan. Employee only, the number on the plan is not a static number. That is subject to change, but this is the latest numbers I was able to get. The employees that have just coverage on themselves, approximately 256. Employees with just spouse coverage, approximately 120. Employees with employee child or children coverage is 80. Family coverage, 77. We have 12 retirees with retiree-only coverage, and we have 11 retirees with retiree and spouse coverage. The county contribution basis down on the number of plan, that 610 is the number of budgeted positions that Washington County has, whether there is somebody occupying that position or not, and that's what that number is in there for reference. The current monthly cost, which is the second column, is going to show the current monthly cost to the employee for the different levels or for the retirees for the different levels. Current plan contribution is the next column. Of the employee only, we're receiving a little over $19,000 per month going into the plan. Washington County is funding each position to the tune of $250,710 per month. The proposed cost, this is the $1,000 deductible plan we're looking at now. The proposed cost increase to the employee only is zero. There is no increase expected for the employee, so it would remain at $74.56. A 15% increase in employee spouse, employee child, and family coverage, and then a 6% increase in the retiree and spouse coverage. And the projected plan contributions associated with each of those, which would give a monthly contribution total of $379,545.47. That our goal, if you'll look down at the smaller number right above the $750 deductible plan, the actual the net goal was $140,000 to achieve revenue neutral, if you will, in the health plan at $140,000, and with these increases, that would put approximately $155,000 in the plan. I mean, would be the net there. So we're to the positive there, about almost $16,000. The next step down is a $750 deductible plan. And again, you would see there the employee only, no increase in premium. Employee spouse would move from current up 20%, 20% increase for employee children, which would take it, for instance, employee child, it would take it from 197 to 236. Family coverage, 30%, and the reason the difference in the premium increase for family coverage is because that is where the majority of the claims are hitting the fund. and that's an actuarial study. So that the family plan coverage at that point would go from current of 480 to 624. Retiree only would stay the same, and retiree spouse would go up by 20% as well. The goal on the plan there, the differentiation goal is $244,000. This would achieve a net of about $11,000 by going with the $750 deductible. And if you move to the last page, where we get to the $500 plan, this is where you see the steeper increases. Employee only, again, there would be no increase to the employee. Employee spouse would increase by 30%. Employee child and family, all three would go 30% up. Retiree spouse, 28%. These are your choices, that I would ask you to consider. My recommendation for plan changes is that we implement. I would recommend that you implement the changes in the copays, and I would strongly encourage you to consider the $1,000 deductible level. This is going to put the employees on par with not only our peer group, with most other businesses that are in the area. I know my deductible in the last 3 years has gone from $500 to $1,250 with my coverage at the university. So we're within our peer, and we have held off making substantial changes to the plan for the 16 years that I've been working with it. And the court has been very gracious, as have one of our former and current circuit clerks, of putting dump-in money into the fund to keep it solvent over the years. But at best, this has been a Band-Aid approach, and it's that point in time where the fiduciary responsibility is about to kick in hard and fast. I checked the balance of Bobby gave me a balance of the fund today, and the fund is at a little bit over 1.5 today, but that does not count that $350,000 that we talked about 2 weeks ago that's about to come out. We need to maintain solvency in this fund to the point of, hopefully a little over $2 million, consistently in that fund. You're just a few steps away from the fund being broke at any given point in time. Just depends on how many catastrophic situations we get into. You can't ever predict when somebody's going to have a massive heart attack with open heart surgery, or get diagnosed with a serious cancer illness, or numerous other things that you just can't predict health claims. And one of the questions that I believe it was J.P. Lundstrom asked, and tell me if I'm wrong, about kicking the self-funded plan to the curb and going with a fully insured plan. And I touched a little bit on that 2 weeks ago. I did get a price on that, and instead of 4.1, we're looking at over $5.2 million with no guarantee of premium. You start having losses in the first quarter, they're going to come back and hit you with 20-25% rate increase. They'll do the same thing second quarter, whatever it takes to maintain their spread as far as the profitability. And that's kind of where we are. But this is my recommendation. We've researched this quite a bit, and I think this is what it's going to take to get the plan. Now, one of the things that you will notice is I did not factor in any increase in contribution on the county side. That's totally your bailiwick, so to speak. So right now you're presently funding each position at $411, and I did not factor in my numbers any increase on the county side.
J.B. Harbison.
Okay. Mr. Nelson, okay. This is for 2017, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
So we're still looking at a possibility of putting in $500,000 this year into the fund? $820,000 this year. And what you're saying here is if we go with the $1,000 deductible and the co-pays, maybe we won't have to infuse any money next year?
That's the goal, yes, ma'am.
That's the goal?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Driver, thank you for your information, and I chatted with you just briefly before this meeting started, and I've got to ask this question. The employees are asking if you all give us a raise, whether it's 3, 4, 5%, it's not going to cover the amount of the increase in our insurance, so now we're taking home less money.
That is a possibility, yes.
Could you speak to me a little bit more about the UMA and the other program that they?
I'm sorry.
Could you speak a little bit more about the the UMA?
I am well.
I am well.
Yes, that's a clinic that we utilize that basically sees our employees and our dependents that are on the plan. It's an express care clinic. It's I think I misspoke a couple of weeks ago when I was here about, and I believe I referred to it as urgent care. It's not. It's express care.
Express care.
Yes, and they can go there with no out-of-pocket copay.
Okay.
And what they do, and the way this works out with I Am Well and with UAMS, is they discount the pricing to us to offset us waiving that copay.
Okay.
They actually charge us 15% less than what we pay to, for instance, Blue Cross Blue Shield's network.
Okay,
charges.
so what is that bottom line to the employee? It's nothing. So they go in there, no copay.
No copay.
They see the doctor, express care. You're okay. You've just had allergies, but take care so you don't get
That's
the
it.
flu?
That's it. They may write them a prescription, and then they'd have a copay on the prescription. But as far as the doctor's office visit, no out-of-pocket cost.
Do you know what the percentage is of our employees that are taking advantage of this program?
Not enough. I can't really give you a good hard percentage, but I believe, and Lindsay would probably be better to answer this question, but I believe that I Am Well, in the last period we talked to them, saw about 43, they had 43 office visits in 1 week at I Am Well.
Okay. I know I shared this also. Perhaps we need to go have departmental chats and encourage all the county employees to take advantage of this program that's being offered to them as a savings to help offset.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, I know they need relief, and they're looking to us for that relief. So anything that we can do.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And one of the things that for just all the way around, and health plan aside from that, the ability to go see a primary care team, when you're first not feeling well, and getting it taken care of before it does go into a full-blown illness where it is problematic and maybe very, very serious, helps out not only the employee but with their children, their spouses as well. It's just a method to hopefully encourage that, yes.
This is fantastic. Okay, thank you. That's all, Judge.
If you Lloyd. Thank you, Judge. First thing, I'd like to commend you on keeping the employee at the 0% increase. I think that's, as an employee, I would really like that, and the retiree only. So I commend you for that part, keeping that at 0. To me, that's like one of the most important things. Is probably why we're not having as many people doing the I Am Well clinic is because they want to see their own doctor. Is that probably why? Is that?
Yes, ma'am. I think that does factor in. People develop a relationship and a comfort level with their primary care doctor. A lot of us have seen the same physician, since we were toddlers or even younger than that. And that's kind of a hard deal to break. And one of the things that I would say about these two express care clinics, both I Am Well and UAMS, they're not trying to replace your primary care doctor. They're trying to get you in, get you seen, and get you back to work.
And that was going to be my question. I mean, you could still do the $1,000 deductible if you went to your primary care, but for little things that maybe you didn't need to have the long discussion with your primary care physician, you could go and just see that. So you could still use both.
Yes.
And still take advantage of both of that.
They have a choice. They can, the employees and the dependents can use both. They can transition, and they may decide they might like the doctor at I Am Well or the doctor at UAMS, and say, okay, well, I can get in here quicker and I can be seen, so I'm going to switch. They're not going to go out and actively recruit you and try to get you to change doctors. That's not what they're there for.
And it seems to me maybe we need to do some public service announcements type of a thing, to get them to go over. But I understand the part about wanting to see your doctor. But the thing I wanted to clear up is you could still do both.
Yes, ma'am.
And so if
Absolutely.
there's something that you feel like that you didn't want to just run down to there, you could still go and see yours. But you would you'd have to pay the $1,000
Absolutely.
deductible.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It'd go toward the deductible.
J.P. Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Judge. My question might be directed to Lindsay, but I'll ask it of you, and Lindsay can step forward if not. I'm glad to sit here and make decisions, but have the employees been surveyed on what they want, or do they have a choice? Do they get surveyed, or?
They have had the information sent out to them. As far as a formal survey, no.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I guess what I'd say is I'd like to know what they want.
Sure.
And so, in making the decision, thank you.
Any other discussion? Oh, I'm sorry, J.P. Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You may have addressed this at one point before, but could you speak a little bit to the healthcare savings accounts, and is that a possibility for us, or to make an option to employees who want to elect that?
We are making preparations to go out for bids in September to see what a high deductible HSA plan will look like as far as the county employees. That would be a bare bones plan that would it would be basic coverages according to the Affordable Care Act as far as compliance. The deductible, you're probably looking on the high deductible plan, you're probably looking at a minimum of a $3,500 deductible with a health savings account attached to that. But yes, that is definitely in consideration.
Well, the reason I ask that is if you're not a huge medical user, you end up actually paying nothing for your medical treatment in a lot of situations. It sounds scary when you see the high deductible, whatever, but you end up paying nothing for your care over the course of a year, even if you have a lot of claims that you didn't anticipate. The math works out where that's actually, if you're not a constant user, for every little thing, if you're using I Am Well or whatever for your normal stuff, it actually ends up being a very positive revenue for the employer, anyone using that. So I think it's something that if we can look at that, at least make it an option for anybody who wants to choose that, then that may fit some of our folks and actually make them financially better off. Thank you.
One of the things that we've looked at along those lines, just industry-wide, just across the board, is for younger employees and their families that are healthy and don't have utilization on the health plan. It's a perfect option because unlike the medical spending account, which is a use it or lose it type situation, I can pre-tax $3,000 a year into my medical spending account, but if I don't use it on medical related stuff by the deadline at the close of the year, I forfeit anything else left in that plan. With the health savings account, it's a rollover. They don't lose anything. It continues to grow and build.
I know my personal experience has been that the premiums go down, contributions from your employer actually help with your HSA. And in some cases, there really is nothing for you to pick up at the end of the month. So you're either zero or you're actually on the revenue positive. So I think if there's any hiccups to that, I'd like to know about it. But if otherwise, I think that we should bring that as an option for our employees.
Okay.
J.P. Cochran?
Thank you. I'm aware of one hiccup, and that's when you take a large percentage of your employees that are very healthy and they go to a health savings account, and all of a sudden now your actuarial computation for the remaining people boosts the cost of the expense to everyone else. That is the upside and the downside. If you're really healthy and you can do that, you can bank the money and save it for later for the rainy day when you do need it. But it does have an impact to us collectively for the total plan. Thank you.
Any other discussion? What we need to do, and like I say, you can make your choice on this at any time, but we do need to move forward on this when you feel like you're ready as much as possible, because Lindsay has to start signing up open enrollment in September, and she has to have these figures. Is it September?
Open enrollment's November.
Okay.
She needs to get the information out in September.
Okay, so it's important. Yes, JP.
I just want to speak to this. I heard from a county employee today who was very, very confused when the letter came out, like just in the past couple days, thought that we were voting tonight to raise deductibles to $1,000, thought that I Am Well was being discontinued. I'm really concerned at the level of misinformation that's out there with county employees, and so I don't think we should be taking any action immediately until we get some better information out there with employees as to what exactly the options are that we're considering so they can weigh in. Because this gentleman was really confused. And I mean, they thought we had an ordinance before us tonight. And I kept saying, I'm pretty sure it's just a proposal, but I think we need to address this responsibly. We need this to settle in a little bit better and allow some good information to get out to the employees before we make a final decision. So I know we need to move quickly, but not too quickly.
Just as a follow-up comment on that, I would ask that each of you, take an opportunity to really think about all three of these areas, all three of these different plans that are sitting before you, and just, this is decision. Yes, we do need to make it quickly, but not too quickly. To your point, this is going to be a heavy impact on some employees, not quite so heavy on others. The fact of the matter is that it's not just county employees that this is affecting. It's all of us. Healthcare costs are not slowing down. We're still seeing double-digit increases in healthcare delivery costs, and so it's very, very problematic, and it's very concerning.
J.P. Harbison.
When do we need to put the $820,000 into the fund?
2 weeks ago. No.
Oh, come on. I don't want to do like we did one year and leave it to the last minute.
It needs to be in there by September 1.
And today is, this is July.
Yes, ma'am.
Not August. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? I think this has been good information, but like I say, I knew that we would not be ready to vote tonight, but I felt like this needed to be presented to you, and I'm sorry for the confusion with our people. We will try to make sure that they're all aware of this and then try to get input. Lindsay, I know that she is taking care of this. So, J.P. Cochran?
Yes, thank you, Judge. One other consideration that we might do with this, Nelson has put together something that's as close to revenue neutral as he can with the three plans with the deductibles. The items on the first page, 2, 3, 4, 5, are separate from number 1. Some of these things could be, left off when you consider. But there's also another consideration. We could, as a county, absorb some of this cost in lieu of the situation with the raises, which would potentially make it palatable for the 155 that are employee and children and family coverage. Those are the heaviest hit as well. Well, the employee and spouse on one as well is just high. The employee only is revenue neutral for them out of their paycheck, so they're in good shape. But if you're married with children and don't have a second choice to say, I want to move over to my spouse's plan, this is the reality. If we were to take 100,000, 200,000, just as a number, not saying that's my suggestion, against that could potentially reduce the proposed cost per month because we would be raising our contribution of $411 per employee. That may be the more equitable way to do it. So just for your consideration, that is one possibility we could do. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, we'll move forward. And when the next thing we're going to go to, thank you very much, Nelson.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you. Number 9, an ordinance to raise salaries, and I'm going to ask our attorney here to speak on this before we go forward. J.P. Dennis.
As I read this, and I think J.P. Dennis and J.P. Balls, I owe you all a bit of an apology. It occurs to me this is an appropriation ordinance, even though it's not listed that way. It's an ordinance spending money, which by state law is an appropriation ordinance. So what that means to everybody else here is that although it's not labeled that way, if you discuss it, you vote on it tonight, it's passed by 10, it becomes law. And I don't know if y'all, as the sponsors or the rest of the court, were necessarily prepared to think about it in those terms tonight. I just wanted to let you know that.
Okay. You have got any comments? J.P. Dennis, go ahead.
Well, Mr. Zaga, would you read 9.1 revised?
I will. Thank you.
suspend the rules and read by title only. I have a motion. Do I have a second? All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign.
No.
Ayes carry.
An ordinance to raise the salaries and wages of non-elected county employees by 4% over 2016 base pay for budget year 2017.
Thank you, Mr. Zaga. I guess the things that I would want to say is a raise. When I think about a raise, what it would do for me if I had employees. And I know that a motivated employee will perform at a higher rate. They'll perform more work. They'll do better work if they're being paid a decent wage. So some of the raise comes back to you just through work performance. Another thing is trained employees. To have a trained employee is a very expensive thing. If you have to constantly train employees to take someone's job that left for a better paying job, that runs into expense, and that's actual cost. So if you were a cost accountant, you would say, okay, if we keep our employees because we pay them a decent wage, then we don't have to train as many, then we don't have that cost, so that would also come out of that 4%. And so that's money that you would save by giving a raise. Proud of our employees. We want our employees to be proud of where they work. And we also want to attract the best replacement for employees that retire. So if we're giving a raise, you'll have the pride factor. They'll be proud to work, and we'll be proud to have them. Fair was the other word that I came up with. We want to be fair with our Washington County employees, and when we see the difference that we pay versus other counties and the private sector, then we need to do what is right, and that's to give them a raise or allow them to have a raise. Workload has increased. Workload is the number 5. It has increased, and any department that you go into now, you see more and more work being done. Kyle Sylvester, I don't know if he's here or not, but I spent 2 or 3 hours one time going through his office with Anita Phillips, and I promised them I would bring forth this ordinance to ask for a raise because I saw how much work they have and how much work they do. I was just astounded. And also the level of work that they do. You know, you're tying up your deeds. They did so many different things in that office. And I was very impressed. And so the workload, the addition of thousands of people coming into Northwest Arkansas has increased the workload on every department that we have. And because so many people are coming in. So that's another reason. And then number 6, I wanted to really emphasize this part. We're not giving a raise. The Washington County employees deserve a raise. They've earned it. It's not us giving them something. It's something they deserve. So I was also asked, how will I pay for it? Well, that's my point in bringing it up so early. Every year, and of course now I haven't been on as many years as some of you, we bring it up, but we bring it up at the end of the budget process. I want to bring it up now so we set aside the money for the raises, and then that way the department managers would all know what's left over to budget with. And instead of doing the budget and then saying, okay, whatever's left, we're going to give to the employees. If the employees are the most important thing that we have, and I've heard several of you say that at the end of the budget process last year, if they're the most important thing that we have in Washington County to do the work, then we need to treat them as such. And we need to look at that first instead of looking at that last. So I move that we accept this ordinance, and I hope that we pass it by 10 and pass it tonight, since it's I forgot what you called it. Appropriation. So I move that we pass this.
Second. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Discussion. J.P. Lundstrom.
I didn't disagree with anything I heard Mr. Dennis say, except when to pass the bill. I don't recall exactly, but a 2% raise seemed to me it was like around $500,000 a year. Maybe Miss Beeks could tell us. So a 4% raise would be $1 million a year or more from now on. So I don't like to make these kind of decisions before Mr. Hill gives me some kind of an idea of what kind of revenue we can expect. Now, if he comes in, our sales taxes are up some. We're actually collecting more money on property tax than we were before we lowered the rate. So we may be able to do this later. I'm not opposed to the raise aspect, but I'm opposed to passing a 4% raise tonight before I know how much revenue we have coming in. So that's my only comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I have Harbison, Madison, and Ecke. J.P. Harbison.
I think that we need to step up and we need to say that the employees of Washington County are important. I think we need to tell the Sheriff's Department they are important. I think we need to tell the Road Department they are important. I think we need to tell the grounds people they are important. I think and I know I left somebody out, but everybody in this county, we have gone through some really hard years. We have cut this budget, and we have cut this budget, and we have cut this budget. And the employees, we have given them just a little bit, and that's it. Last year, we only gave a bonus. We didn't even give a raise. So I think what we need to do, I think we need to pass this tonight and find the money to fund it. Thank you.
J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Judge. I sort of shared J.P. Lundstrom's concerns. It feels a little early. I think everyone on the court wants to give a raise, believes it's time to get a raise. One of the things that's complicating it for me is the presentation we had from Sheriff Helder on law enforcement pay compared to other law enforcement agencies in Northwest Arkansas. And one of the things that troubles me about that is that we put law enforcement in the same grading system with all other county employees, and I don't think that's right. And I spoke to the sheriff about, well, how is it that with this grading system we have, how is it that other entities don't have the same problem? Because if we want to raise law enforcement to sort of be more comparable, then that boosts the entire system because of our grade system. And what the sheriff said is that a lot of other entities separate out law enforcement, and so there's a separate compensation system for law enforcement. And so to me, that adds a layer to this that I think requires a little bit more of a complicated analysis on our part for how to do this, because I think the law enforcement, and I include both the enforcement and the detention side in that, our system needs an overhaul. We need to bring our law enforcement officers up to the market level. And that, to me, is really apart from any discussion about a raise. They need to get to the market. And I think to do that, I think we're going to have to really probably pull them out of the county system. Because based on what we've seen, a grade 14 at the jail is not the same as a grade 14 that works in the courthouse. I know that we may say their skill sets are similar, but what they do on a daily basis is just not the same. The weight of their uniforms is just not the same. And so I think that this court needs to dig a little deeper into the complexities of compensation. And it's going to take time and work, and we may not even get it done this year, but I think we need to commit to doing it because the sheriff's presentation proved it to me. And we have to find a way to do that. And so I want to give a raise. I think it's just going to be a little bit more complicated than just a flat 4% or whatever we want to do, because I think we need to look harder at our overall comp for law enforcement. And so I'm not prepared to vote on this tonight. I know a lot of you all have come to hear about this, and I heard from an employee today about it. And so I want to find a way, but I just think it's a little more complicated. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
J.P. Ecke.
Thank you, Madam Judge. Having sat through a budget process for the first time last year and about to go through it again this year, but sitting in the public gallery the year before, I hate to say this, but the definition of insanity is when you do something over and over and over the same way, expecting different results. And I hope this year we will not do the process the same as we have done it in the past. We have new issues. We have new pressing circumstances that are facing this court that we need to kind of come up with a new template that is relevant for today's issues that can answer that. I would like to ask the elected officials help on this. If we give a 5%, I know that's a 4% on the floor right now as far as the appropriation ordinance. But from the beginning, I said that the Washington County employees should be given a 5% raise, 2% short-term capital outlay, 3% long-term capital outlay. Before you even look at anybody else's budget, we need to take care of that which takes care of us, and that's the employees. It doesn't matter what the revenues are. We need to take care of the employees, and if this is what it's going to cost, then the numbers and everybody else's budget needs to fall in line. And I believe that the elected officials' departments will support the employee raises. I do believe with Justice Madison that we need to look at the Sheriff's Department in a completely different way. We need to just say this budget process that we went through last year, it doesn't work. It is insanity. And I think all of us felt a little daffy at the end of the process. It didn't work. And we cannot just take from this department one year and that department from another. We need help, and so we need creative new ideas. But I am for a 5% employee raise. I'm for giving the Sheriff's Department that which they need to protect us, all of us. And we're just going to have a radical new idea, creative ideas. And I think there's 15 of us, brilliant minds. And I think if we all just kind of say, this is my mindset, let me look at this. This is my mindset, let me look at this department, let me look at that, let me look at that, rather than all of us looking at it, the whole thing all together. Let's just break it down and say, you know what, I'm really good in personnel, so let me look at this. I'm really good with the roads department, let me look at this, and see what the brilliant mind can come up with if it's unrestrained. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening.
J.P. Bowman?
Thank you, Judge. You know, I don't have any doubt that our county employees need a raise. But you know what? We're responsible for the entire budget. And it's our responsibility to balance the budget. And before we have information from Mr. Hill about anticipated income, you know, we're already talking about the fact that we've got a big deck out here. We're going to have $300,000 cost there. We know that on and on we go with increase in costs everywhere we look. And I just think that we've got to go ahead and have some numbers. You don't go out and make a big commitment on your personal checking account without you know what is going to be going into the bank that you can draw against. And I think we've got to be very careful about this doggone thing. You know, when times are tough, we all have to suck it up. And the employees have been doing a good job of that. I feel like our employees are doing a great job. I don't think they're overpaid at all. And I think we need to try to do what we can. I think one of the primary issues we got to realize is the way we're talking about this thing, we may have to maximize the doggone assessments out here to cover the kind of things we're talking about spending. And I think that's a realistic kind of situation we're going to have to deal with. And we're going to have to look at some numbers before we can really make good decisions about that level of spending. So, thank you.
J.B. Pond?
I'm of a mind that, and I don't disagree with the sheriff's presentation on, comparing our law enforcement with other law enforcement in the area. We're not comparable. I agree with that completely. But I've not heard anything from Mr. Johansson that's any different from the rest of the employees. I don't feel like taking part in a situation, in a process where we're going to divide out the law enforcement from the rest of the county employees. It'd be kind of like dividing and conquering. We need to treat our employees that are not getting paid comparably the same. And as far as 4% or 5%, I think it's healthy to talk about the need ahead of time before we take and spend the money on the other things. The employees are not things. They are an asset. They are our most important asset. And I would just plead that you don't decide to divide them up and say, well, this department over here is a more valuable asset than this department over here. And by the way, we've just been shown a big concern. We're going to have to do something about the health care coverage. And at the same time, we are going to have to be concerned that our employees, our most important, our most valuable asset, are still going to be able, they're going to be being paid enough to cover their health care. We don't want to create a situation where some of our employees just have to drop that health care insurance and just pay the penalty under the new tax and health insurance laws. There are a lot of concerns here. Well, I took part in a vote a few years back where we could afford to reduce property tax. We reduced it $500,000, and I was proud to do that. That was letting the citizens of Washington County, the landowners, keep some money we didn't have to have then. But there is no way that I can pretend that was meant to never be a tool that this court could use to some way or other, in a very small way, tweak revenue a little bit when there's a genuine need. We may very well, we haven't looked at the numbers yet, but in order to maintain some kind of reasonable, comparable salary for our most valuable asset, we may need to put some of that back. We may need to ask the public for that revenue, the landowners, the property owners, for that revenue back, but so we can continue to provide the services that the people in this county, many, need. Thank you.
J.P. Lundstrom.
I recall last year I asked for a raise for the sheriff, and it failed. He didn't get it. And it wasn't based on the fact he's in a different department. It was based on the fact of the number of people that works for him. You take any department, that's why we've got this JSAT program with all these different levels of pay in it. Everybody don't make equal pay. It's based on the job you have to do. It's based on the amount of intelligence you have to do the job. A lot of things are involved in this. But I don't think, outside of some jobs in the road department, there's probably a job here that's even half as dangerous as a police officer. Some jobs in the road department are pretty dangerous too, but at least they're not getting shot at. So I talked to Lindsay about this just the other night because I was concerned, could we even do one department separate from others, and she assured me that that would be possible. So I've been thinking the same thing that Justice Madison brought up tonight. I would like to take a close look at that before we decide what we're going to do about raises. So that kind of completes my comments. I'd like to call the question on this because a lot of us need to be out of here by 8 o'clock. Thank you, Madam Chair. About a second.
It's not debatable.
Motion to end debate is a 2/3 majority, Judge.
Okay. So we're ready to call roll.
No, not on the ordinance. I'm sorry. JP Lundstrom's motion to call the question, and who seconded?
J.B. Madison.
Is not debatable. That's what you'd vote on, and it's a 2/3 to stop debate.
Okay. Carla, would you call the roll if this is to stop debate?
Butch Vaughn?
Yes.
Bill Usry?
No.
Daniel Balls?
No.
Harvey Bowman?
Yes.
Rick Cochran?
No.
Robert Dennis?
No.
Lisa Ecke? Ann Harbison?
No.
Sharon Lloyd?
No.
Tom Lundstrom?
Yes.
Eva Madison?
Yes.
Sue Madison?
Yes.
Joel Maxwell?
No.
Gary McHenry? Joe Patterson?
No, it's 2/3, and it was 8-7, was it not?
So debate continues.
The motion to close debate failed.
Okay, now I have a list here. I have J.P. Usry. You're next on the list.
In the past, what we've done is the Sheriff's Department they're in a different situation than the rest of the county employees. And to be competitive, I mean, some people, if they're not competitive now, I think what we need to do is let Mr. Johansson show us again where we need to be. And perhaps we can come up with a 3-year plan that each year we can do a certain amount toward that to bring them up to where they need to be. We don't have to do it all at once, but I think if we take a measured approach, number one, it gives them hope, which that's what we all need, and number two, it'll put into size pieces that we can attain realistically and still keep it together. So that's something I'd like for us to consider as we go through this process. Thank you.
J.P. Bowman.
Thank you, Judge. You know, I'd like for you guys to think about something. The market sets the price of employees. And if we go ahead and look at this consistent raise for everybody across the board, we could be looking at a situation here where we have nobody in enforcement, nobody in the police department at all, because it's a dangerous job, it's a difficult job, it requires different skill sets than what many other jobs do. So if we continue this process of not evaluating department by department and the skill required for that doggone job, we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot big time. The market sets the price of skill sets, and we've got to be aware of that and respond to that. If we don't, we're just plain stupid. Thank you, Judge.
I've got McHenry, I've got Cochran, and then I've got Hart. No, I'm sorry. Joe, did I have you on the list? Okay, I thought it was Gary.
Thank you, Judge. I'll just say this to start with. There's not any way that I can process everything that we need to talk about and vote on a raise tonight. There's a lot of factors involved. And we have to weigh a lot of things. We just spent, or we're told tonight, in the next 30 days, we're going to spend $820,000 for insurance. Now, that's just to get us for now. It doesn't say that's what, and we still got the other that we need to do, and that hadn't been mentioned. Then we got to consider on the employees. Are we going to, what's it going to do to give them 4% raise if we've got to take a big chunk of it for insurance? We don't need to raise their insurance if we can keep from it. That's real important. That's real dollars on insurance. You don't got any taxes out of it. You don't have all this stuff that comes out of it. That's just, if you have that expense, you're covered. That all has to be processed, and everything else. Law enforcement is pretty valuable to me. My house was broke in twice when I was first on the Quorum Court, within 2 years. My nephew's house next door was broke into. His dad's house next door to that was broke into twice. Lost a lot of weapons. He did. And we still have criminals out there, but I don't see them doing too much because there's people out there in the county driving up and down the roads. That's real important. We have to. The raises and the budget always weighs heavy on my mind for a long time in this fall of the year. We have to do what's right to the best of our ability. We have to do what's best for our employees to what we can afford. And we can argue around, and last year we went over everything, and we counted every pencil and everything else, if you want to put that out there like that. But we made a little bit of ground. But we didn't make as much as we needed to give a raise. And why aren't we getting more tax money? People's moving in here every day. We read how all these people are coming into the county. Well, they get into the system somewhere. So what's taking the money? Anybody sit down and think about that? You think you got however many coming a day, but how come we're not having enough tax money to do what we do? We don't hire people out here every day. We don't buy new cars every day. We don't do this and we don't do that every day. We just do what we have to do. So where is that money? When's it going to come in? Is it going to show up next year and take 2 years for show up or what? That's things that's got to be factored. I wouldn't vote tonight on anybody for whether it was 1% or 10%. I wouldn't even begin to think about all that in one evening. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you, I'm going to recognize everyone, but I'm going to ask you to quit repeating everyone over and over and over. It's getting to be a long evening. We need to move forward with new comments. The next one, J.P. Cochran.
Thank you, Judge. May I address this? It has to do with where our money's coming from. I think it's relevant and pertinent to our deal. You'll find a legal sheet here. It's titled Financial Forecast, but it's a spreadsheet I've been working on. And I've taken our historical numbers. Up in the left-hand corner in the yellow, you'll see a number 4562. And basically, there's been a figure touted, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, but it's something to work with. At average, every day we have 25 new residents in the Northwest Arkansas area. Splitting those half and half between Washington and Benton County, I've factored that into some historical data. Call your attention to the first few columns there in the census of our urban Washington County, rural Washington County in total. Through the years, you can see in 2010 we took a hit in the new census, and it dropped our revenue 21.48%. That's a real thing. That's coming again in 2020. We need to be looking down the road at where our money comes and when it comes as well, rather than this 1 year at a time. So you can see that if the trend that we had between the 2000 census, where we had 37,201 people, and at 2010 we had 37,609, you can see that the cities continually annex our outlying areas, and our county population continues to stay about the same. So I just factored that as the same and let the growth in the county population go forward. Moving across over a little bit, the 1% general revenue sales tax, you see the historical numbers in there, and then looking at the average over the last 4 years, we've averaged an increase of 3.8%. So I just forecast 3.8% going forward each year, and you can see that from year to year to year, you can see the numbers of the amount over the previous year that we will bring in sales tax revenue that goes directly into the general fund. For reference, you see the jail and the road as well. Moving on into the real estate forecast area, you can see the assessments. This is the tax base from our assessor. And the real estate millage rate, you see a nice history there of where our rates have been. We were at 3.54 mils in 2000. We jumped all the way to 5 mils for 3 years after that, backed off to 4 3/4, 4.7, 4.5, 4.4. When I'm on the court, we reduced it to 3.9. Our reason for reducing it further then is we had no way to give it back. We had a large reserve, and that was the reason. We don't have that large reserve anymore, so adjusting that back to help us find the money that we need to do for insurance, a deck, raises, any other money that we need to spend is something here. So you can see the difference in the tax collection rate, and out in the far column you can see the increase over the prior year, looking at just an average of 3% increase year to year at a current 3.9 millage rate. So you can see if you run across the 2017 column, you'll find $260,000 in sales tax revenue increase and $419,000 in real estate tax. These are numbers that are pretty realistic. So you've only got about $700,000 in increased revenue, and we've got more than that in increased cost. So we have to look at where are we going to get this money, and we're not going to reduce people's pay. we do need to address the pay increase. I don't think tonight's the night to do it, but it is good that we're bringing it to bear right up the front. This spreadsheet, if you want it in electronic form so you can dial in different numbers and see what it does, if you'll check with Karen, she can email that to you, and you guys feel free to use that as a tool to see what you've got. But I've been studying on this too, because I felt like that, where are we going to get the money? We've got a lot of things we want to do. We want to do it for the employees. And both salaries and insurance is a big topic and big money for us this coming year. So I think they do need to be addressed early, and I commend our justices who co-sponsored this ordinance, although I think it's too early to vote for it. I think that the two items that probably are the biggest, I don't know, they're the elephant in the room, as they call it, is what we're going to do with our millage and what we're going to do with our increases for salaries. Once we know what we're going to do with that, I think we can address the rest of the budget fairly efficiently, and I hope that we go in that direction. And I thank you for your time on this. And if you want this, again, Karen can send you a copy of it. Thank you, Judge.
I'm going to recognize Steve now. He has a comment that he needs to make, and Ann, I'll get you next.
I want to say, I just want to remind you all, after hearing several of you say you may not be prepared to do this tonight, because it's an appropriation ordinance, if it gets an up or down vote, and those who said they're not ready to vote on it tonight, that may present problems with bringing it back at a later time. Having said that, maybe and I'm suggesting this as a parliamentary advice, you may want to table this tonight. If you do that, one of two things has to happen. You either have to table it until a meeting in the future or indefinitely. The indefinite table, as I learned to my chagrin last time, is debatable. We're going to table it to a time certain, is whether that be a meeting or a date, is not debatable.
J.P. Dennis. Do you need a second on the table?
Would need a second.
I need a second on the table. I have a motion and a second.
Finance Committee.
Okay. So
you
when
said regular quorum court, did you not, J.P. Dennis? That's
okay. It'll be
August.
That'll be in August, so we'll bring it up at that time then. I've got an announcement that I've got to make.
They need to vote on that, Judge.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and do roll call on that to table it, Carly.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Bill Ussery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Ann Harbison. Sharon Lloyd.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom. Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison. Joe Maxwell.
Yes.
Gary McHenry.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
Okay, this is tabled until the regular quorum court, and we'll bring it back up at that time. I've been negligent in bringing this up. I saw a gentleman come in, and I just want everyone to know, Mr. Ty Augustine, we're delighted to see you with us tonight, and it's an honor to have you here. Thank you, Ty, for coming. We always enjoy seeing you.
Hi, Ty. Is he going to speak? There's nothing.
Okay, the last thing on the agenda is citizens' comments. Yes, come right ahead. We know who you are, but identify yourself anyway.
Yes, thank you. I thought most of you knew who I am. Courtney McNair. I work for the planning office. I have for 11 years. Most of you who know me know that I don't like to be in this seat, that most of the time I prefer to sit back there. But I did feel like I needed to address you tonight. Sorry. I have some concerns about the proposed increase in our insurance. It's very scary to all of us. I do understand the importance. I completely understand the importance of making our insurance fund solvable. I understand that we cannot continue to pipe money into it like we have in the past. But this is going to cause a very significant impact to most of your employees.
The plan proposed by Mr. Driver does more accurately reflect market plans that are out there. I understand that. However, as county employees, we are paid below market wages. And one of the reasons that this is okay and acceptable to us is because we've had great benefits in the past. That included our retirement plan and this very affordable health care. Well, then last year they come, in the report they say, well, our retirement plan is okay, but it's not that great. And then this year they say, well, let's increase our insurance significantly. This has a huge impact on us as employees. It feels like all of those great benefits and the reason that below market wages are more acceptable are just being stripped from your employees. In my opinion, it's not fair to ask us to carry the burden of marketplace insurance rates when our wages are below marketplace rates. And that goes for certainly the sheriff's office, but your other employees are paid below too. I would like to point out some expenses that I was discussing today with an older county employee who it didn't occur to him that we had these burdens. Student loans. A lot of us are still very much indebted to our student loans and have large payments that we make. Child care is a huge cost that we are already burdened with. Mortgages and rent. We don't have our homes paid off yet. We don't have the extra money sitting around because we're putting it out every month. And even just our car loans and our car insurance to get back and forth to work are all things that some people who have already paid off their mortgages, who don't have young children, and who don't have the burden of those student loans. When our parents went to college, the rates were not what they were. College was very affordable, and now it is just simply not. And some of our jobs require that we have a college degree in order for us to hold that position. Many of us, your younger professionals, still struggle every month. And it is not due to irresponsibility or poor money management. I'd like to point out that everything I know about personal finance, I learned from Mr. Driver. He was my college professor, and he teaches that.
Courtney, your 3 minutes is up,
Okay.
honey, but I do appreciate you.
Well, I did send this to Butch. I have it in writing. But I'd like y'all to think about this impact.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Any other comments? Identify yourself.
I'm Juliette Ritchie. I'm the Washington County Planning Director, and I'm here tonight primarily because I was talking to some of my employees who do, as you can see, have concerns. Last year, I waited till the end of the budget process to talk to y'all. I felt like, frankly, as a department head, and this year I felt like I should probably talk sooner. Primarily due to the stress that I feel like the employees feel. Also, I feel like, I don't know, it sometimes feels like it's hard to find a good venue to speak with y'all about personnel issues. When we're limited to a 3-minute discussion at the end of a meeting. And I do think these are important issues. And I liked a lot of the things, I will say frankly, that I heard y'all say tonight. They felt much more encouraging and positive to me than I felt like some of the things were that we heard last year. And I do want to say on the front end, and I think I said this last year, that I understand, it's a huge, this part of your job, it's overwhelming. How to make decisions about huge pieces of taxpayer money, how to allocate them, not having completely solid ideas about what you're going to have in revenue. I've sat through these budget meetings for 11 years, and I know that it's a lot to struggle with. But I meant everything I said last year, and I think we do struggle with some of the same things. I do worry about potential retention problems that we may run into. And I do think that there is definitely a cost that goes with that. And I'm not a professional at calculating those costs. But I do think that does come at a cost. And I personally don't have an issue with separating out law enforcement. I understand that they are a very different animal, but I do think that it's important to, even if you do that, you still need to look at all your other employees as well. And it is hard as a manager. You know, I talked to you last year. You know, I feel like I have limited tools in my toolbox when I'm trying to hire people about why you should work for the county. It's hard, you know, when you know that, you know, like last year, I think we were sitting at 5% below market, and that's an average, right? You know, and then, and I realized you did the best you could last year with the bonuses, but that didn't bump anybody's salary, right? And so if there's regular increases, I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen Mr. Johansson's report, and I know you haven't either. But I'm guessing, what, 8 or 9%?
Your 3 minutes is up. I do appreciate it.
Is it possible for me to talk longer?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Proceed.
All right. And so, I mean, and you know, I'm able to pull up, you know, the comparable job descriptions to the people in my department at the city of Fayetteville. That's literally a mile down the road. And it does make you start to wonder, at what point can you, and I will say one of the big selling points that we've had is that our insurance plan was much better than the city of Fayetteville's in the past. And I like Courtney, I agree. I totally understand that it has to be made solvent. I've watched infusions go into it year after year, right? When I've sat here, and I totally understand that, and I'm not against it. But you do have to understand it does have a real cost. And, I mean, there was a comment that it's revenue neutral if it's employee only. But that's not really true. That's only for premiums. That's not an out-of-pocket maximum. I do think out-of-pocket maximums are especially scary for people. Right now we have a lower one. When I was talking to Courtney earlier, she was discussing, you know, what if you have a car wreck or whatever with your family, and all of a sudden you're looking at $10,000 in out-of-pocket cost, you know, for a whole family, where it could have been capped at $2,500 before. I mean, it just, to me, it makes a lot of the unknowns a little scarier when you're looking at personal financial planning. And so it does seem disturbing to me that we would move forward with that, reducing actual money coming out of people's checks, but then also just a much higher risk that you have to plan and save for, I think, you know, personally as an employee, for your family, and not be able to compensate people at a market level. And I feel like we're headed in a scary direction if we can't find a way to turn it around. And I do think that there could be benefits that we could add that didn't cost as much money. You know, we talked about perhaps some paid leave. Mr. Balls had contacted me earlier this year that wouldn't actually remove dollars from county accounts. Just something. We got to do something to show the county employees that we care. And I know y'all do care. I mean, I see it. I can see that you care. But I just feel like, man, this year, if we can do something more than just talk about it, and we can try to find revenue neutral ways to do things if we can't do anything else. I mean, I just feel like we have to do something, because I'm really struggling as a manager. I'm struggling to recruit people. I feel like I'm struggling to retain people. I mean, people have to take care of their families. They have to. And it scares me to see where we would go as a county if, you know, again, I'm not an HR professional, so I don't maybe know the right terms to use. But at some point, if there's not incentives for people to work somewhere, like real incentives that are somewhat competitive, then you end up with strange people. And I think I'm serious. And I think that government is especially susceptible to it because some of it's regulatory jobs, like our job. And so then you have people that are in there. If it's not for the money or the health insurance or, normal reasons that you might take a job. Sometimes it's for personal power, for people who feel small, and you end up with very strange abuses of power. And I'm not saying that that is exactly what would happen, but I've seen it before. And those aren't the people I think that you want providing services to people of Washington County. Definitely not in where I work, but I would say most assuredly not in law enforcement. And it scares me. And I tell you, I don't know. I like Washington County, and I live here for a reason. My husband works in Benton County, and he hates his commute. Right? And he personally lobbies me, on a monthly basis to try to lure me away. And I say, no way, man. I know some of the things about Benton County and some of the way that their government has worked in the past. And it worries me. I feel very secure with our law enforcement here. I know that it's run by good people. I know the services we provide. I know a lot of people that work in this county, not just for our county, but for the smaller cities. And they're good people with good hearts that are community-minded and care about Washington County. And I think the people that are behind the services, as well as the services you provide, those things make a difference to a lot of people. And it adds value to our county. Anyway, I could go on, but I won't because I know you want to go. But I ask you to think about it. And I don't particularly like coming up here to talk to y'all either, but I just feel like it is scary. And I've watched several years. I feel like I have to speak up now. I have to keep talking. And anyway, and I think it would be great if you could survey us about more things. I personally dislike IMWell. I went several times and I didn't feel like the service was good. I don't know how much we pay for that. I don't know why we have 2 versus 1, but I think it would be worthwhile to ask employees about things like that on a regular basis. So, okay, I'm done.
Thank you. Any other business?
Oh, yes, Madam Judge. We've got lots of business. My name's Ann Harbison. I live in District 14. I want y'all to really look at and study this tonight because this really is the revenue. We can't sit here and say, well, we've got to wait to see what the revenue is. This is a projection, and it's pretty accurate. Bobby Hill says, he's looked at it, and he, we're going to have $700,000 new money, and we've got a lot more expenses than that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
We got another one.
Okay, go ahead. You've got 3 minutes. I've got a meeting to go to.
Thank you, Judge. The name's Lorraine O'Neill, and I appreciate the time. And I understand this is a very difficult process, and I've been through several of them with you guys as well, and I know it's not easy. But this country is overwhelmed with debt. We cannot unconscionably give out raises that, yes, they may be deserving of, but I think it should be considered that they go to a merit system and not an across-the-board pay raise. I'm sure they do deserve it. I agree with the idea that the law enforcement should be separated out because in this day and age, in the atmosphere that we live in, they need all the support we can give them, whether it be financial, moral, or whatever. And we need to be responsible to the budget, absolutely bottom line. And I think all of the JP's opinions are important and should not be attempted to be silenced. Thank you.
Anyone else? A motion to adjourn?
Ms. Rugen, I'll take 30 seconds.
You better take 15.
Just to give you a challenge, we're at Russell Hill, Washington County Assessor. And at the beginning of this year, we created what we called our ELF fund. It's an employee love fund, because we've had employees who go through have different struggles. And so we, in our office, in the assessor's office, we have rallied together and we created this love fund where we help people out. And these are people who are already paid below the standard. They don't have the money, but they find the money. And we take care of each other. So I want to encourage you. You have a way to find the money. I encourage you to find the money, and I encourage you to take care of each other. That's all I got. Thanks.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign.